if we talk about DNA as if it's like a template for life and for all the functions of an organism, we used to kind of think of it as like a mold in a factory for a part of a car, for example, which, we have this particular mold, we pour in molten metal or plastic, and we get this part out. And the mold can do that thousands of times, and unless something kind of goes critically wrong, we get the same identical car part every single time. But DNA is actually more like a script. So the really nice analogy that I read was that we can kind of think of it as Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
That's really cool. So with this car part analogy, is that the idea where your genes kind of set your fate? Like you can't fight against your genes. Like whatever they are determines what you will look like and become?
Yeah, I think that's the fundamental understanding that's changed, in that the regulation of those genes and what they actually produce in terms of functions isn't always the same just because of the code, and there's a lot of context and additional steps beyond that. And I think the classic example is if we think of identical twins who have that exact same blueprint, all that same code, but they can end up with sort of different physiological traits and things like schizophrenia in one twin and not in the other. So this is a good example that's commonly used. But our understanding has evolved now to this really nice analogy of it, DNA being more like a script. If you think of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, for an example, there have been multiple depictions of Shakespeare's initial writings in plays and films. And if we just think of the example, the more recent film with Leonardo DiCaprio, is a very different interpretation of that same text, that same language and writing. And this is the kind of intuition that we now have with epigenetics, that we have identical starting parts, but different outcomes.